where they're able to start working towards or saving towards or investing towards financial freedom. But I think we are behind people who have had a boost and a lot of support before us, so we are still kind of playing catch up. So for me, I feel like coming together and events like this where we're able to discuss initiatives that will help us to gain that financial freedom is really important. And of course, ownership, property ownership, any kind of ownership is a good step up into that freedom. So that's my opinion on it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is David Adjei. I'm an architect and property developer. I'm the founder of Cognition Group, which is a sort of a three-headed company with the architect studio, property development arm, as well as holding buy-to-let property, as well as an interior design studio. And I believe that the equality with regards to race and housing is very important, because it's the only way that we can maintain the balanced society and retain the character and the true essence of any place, rather than having people sort of being displaced due to gentrification and not being on the wrong end of gentrification, and people that have stories, that have lives, that have generations that have been brought up in a certain area being displaced because of simply lack of access to funds or lack of ability to sustain themselves. That place then loses something when those people are displaced. So it is important that we enable each other to decide where we want to live, and if we choose to remain in a certain area, have the financial education and means to remain in that place. Does that answer the question? Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, following that was impressive. Good evening, everyone. Hope you're all well. My name's Rob. So during the day, I'm a product analyst working in sort of financial services. So currently working with a company called Adjei, so that's an insurance company. But outside of that, I'm also helping my family business in property as well, property development. So we mainly focus on commercial and residential. We've got a bit more interest in commercial, which is a bit more of a, I guess, a more sophisticated model, and really plays up to sort of that generational wealth, cash flow kind of thing. What was the question again? In terms of inequality.
So why do you think reducing racial housing inequalities is important?
Yeah, I think as a people, as alluded to already, generational wealth is massively important. I think that's something that, as a people, we know it's important, but might not have, I guess, the knowledge, as it were, to know what mechanisms actually facilitate that in terms of, you know, things like trust and stuff. So I think it's really important to, number one, eradicate that, to I guess give us a bit more access to that, but also in terms of opportunities as well. For example, in the sort of like pop tech industry as well, there's a new sort of skill set that's needed, and I think some of those people are actually sitting in this room today. So I think it's really important to actually sort of get rid of that inequality and actually tackle that, to actually open that to some of you guys in the room today. So yeah, that's my answer.
Hi everyone, my name is Selasi, Setufe. I'm an architect. I wear several different hats. I'm not going to give you all of the hats. It's a bit long. So I'm an architect. I was self-employed for a while, and last 2 weeks or so I just started working for a development arm of the local borough of Dagenham, and it's called BeFirst. In addition to that, I am a co-founder, along with 3 amazing women, of an organisation called Black Females in Architecture.
You can see them there.
Yeah. And in response to your question, I think you guys have given amazing answers, so I'm just going to kind of echo all of what you said. And my response is going to come from a different angle, in that kind of in relation to what we do in Black Females in Architecture is we strongly feel that place and space needs to be representative, and the making of place and space needs to be with the involvement of the kind of people that access and use and are part of those places and spaces. So there's so many different barriers to entry, and racial inequality exists within the industries that allow people to inform what those places and spaces are. So I feel that, or we feel that it's important to reduce and eradicate racial inequality within the professions themselves, in order that we're able to create spaces that are reflective of the people that live in them. Yeah.
Hi everyone, so I'm Giorgia Stewart and I'm Head of Community Engagement for Lendlease across our Europe business. So from our perspective, in terms of the question, as an oldie as well in here that I'm looking at, seriously, it's great, but yes.
You're not old.
I am, but I would say in terms of the importance, I love what Selasi just said. It is important to understand representation and how you actually, organisations that are responsible, as we are, for creating and what our strapline is creating the best places. But actually, in order to do that, you have to bring the community along with you to understand the opportunities that are set before you. So we have a huge social value agenda that we deliver and understand, and through that our own sustainability of that is really critical. Now when I got the statistics that was said around ownership between the different racial demographics, actually if you flip that on its head, so in the UK we're just under 70 million and 87% of that is white, 6% is Asian, including Indian, Bangladeshi, Pakistani and Chinese denominations across all. 3% of that is considered us as in black, African and Caribbean and mixed, 3%. If you turn that into millions, that is 1.9 million black, Caribbean mixed in this country. That is no percentage. So to understand that in comparison of 24% ownership of properties, actually in the ratio pretty good. If you look at it like that, but what is exceptional is from Asians, 6% matching the same amount as white counterpart is incredible. So understanding data and how data is presented, forget about perception, understand the data and what that actually means is actually what is important to understand the narrative. And you create your own narrative through that. So I think the importance of really that representation, because economy plays a huge part of what you can own and not own in this country. So understanding that element of how you actually need to be in particular positions in order to create those, whether you buy shared ownership, mix different types of tenure and you build that, whether you understand the importance of how, which I'm sure our brothers here can tell us, how you purchase companies, purchase property outside of London, because the deposit is ridiculous. But if you buy a property in Doncaster, I can tell you can get properties for 60k in Doncaster. So it's a difference of how you generate and how you start to set out the property industry. But you have to be in positions to be actually reflect change. So unless you go into that professional sector, which is challenging its own right, trust me, it's not easy. But actually, I'm very passionate about how us as a company really create change in the places that we have huge projects happening at the moment across, and that was actually attracted me to come to Lendlease, because they actually headhunted me to be a part of here. So there's a difference, because I've worked on so many big projects before and wanted to understand how and why and my passion behind that. So there's a really big difference of what you actually can do, but it is about reflection and it is about that passion, and it isn't easy. So I kind of wanted to flip those figures on its head and understand the difference, because the representation is very finite here. And by the way, 1.09% of black and Caribbean, African Caribbean people are all in London. So effectively, we should own more of London. That's what I was just going to say. So that's me. Sorry, that's me. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, panelist. I actually believe we have one Caribbean. Giorgia, where are you actually from?
Listen, yesterday, right? I'll tell you a story. yesterday I went out to dinner after work, and then on my way I was going purchasing a present, and this lady said to me, and I was in King's Cross, and she served me in a shop, and she looked at me and she said, "Can I ask you, are you from Ethiopia?" I get told that so many times. No, I'm not actually. And she says, "No, your face. And then I went to dinner, and the lady said to me at the restaurant, "Are you from Ethiopia?" My parents are actually, I was born in Forest Gate, but my parents are from Jamaica. But I did do my DNA. So I am 79% African, but spread right across. So as well as Ghana, as well as Congo, as well as Nigeria. But the interesting point is part of that DNA, I'm also from Eritrea. So it's really fascinating. That's what obviously people can see in my face. So, and unfortunately, I'm 1% British. 3% Irish, 3% Italian. Wow. And then split across. So yeah, slave master's got a lot to answer.
Wow. Okay.
This is me. Sorry, when everyone asks me, because I know my DNA, I go, right.
I think just for ease of what I want to say next, I believe we have 1 Jamaican, 2 Ghanaians, and 2 Ugandans on the panel. And I think if we're honest to ourselves, we can all agree that this is probably the first Black History Month event where there's not a Nigerian on the panel. So let's give the panel but in all honesty, we're truly blessed to have this diverse panel and such talent in the room. And as we progress, we'll open the floor for questions, so there'll be time for questions and interaction. But firstly, let's kick off our discussion with how can housing innovation reduce housing inequalities? Not all at once.
Get to my thoughts.
Thanks for the question, and thank everybody for coming. I didn't get the chance to do that, so thank everybody for your time. I know it's late and it's winter. No one wants to be out late, so thank everybody for coming out. When I looked at the question, I thought about house and what it means to what does a house mean, and as a building for people to live in. But then I also found this other definition where it says a building in which people meet for a particular activity. And I believe that the innovation that needs to happen regarding the housing, I think it stems from what happens in your house, what knowledge is being shared. Because I know a lot of people whose parents may own property, may, be walking on that path, but they haven't taken the time to sit down and actually teach their children how to navigate this, what does it mean to save? Because you're taught to save, you're taught to go to school, but you're not taught about why. You're not taught about why, because I'm sure that if people knew why as children, if I save this amount of money and put it into a property, it can pay me for the rest of my life, then the importance for us to do that would be very different. Because we don't have the why, we don't listen. Yes, Mum, I know. Yes, Dad, I know. But then you'll still go and spend the money wherever you want to. So I think the innovation that needs to happen at the first instance is in our own minds. It's in our own minds. We need to be teaching ourselves what this actually means. What are we really even talking about? That's the most important thing. The minds need to be transformed. But because it doesn't matter how much share to buy, help to buy, you put in front of people. If they don't understand the fundamentals of why they're doing it, it's another thing that will pass by on the bus.
So why do you think our parents aren't teaching us the why?
Too busy. Too busy. I don't know. Maybe we don't. Some people don't want to hear it. I don't know. But from what I understand from the few people that I spoke to, so I'm the first homeowner in my family, but it's. And I just see it as with some other people that I know whose parents own property and stuff like that. They're just some people are just too busy or don't see it as important to download those lessons. And I think that we short circuit ourselves because our parents, our previous generations have 50 years, 60 years of experience, of knowledge, of wisdom, but that isn't being passed down to us, and we're starting again. So in terms of generational wealth, we should also talk about generational wisdom, generational understanding, generational knowledge. There's so much lessons to be taught from previous generations to us, so that we can not mess up our credit file at the age of 25, and then we can't buy even if we have the cash. Do you know what I mean? Like there's so much knowledge that needs to be passed down that isn't being passed down. And to just pick up on what you mentioned about the Asians, I work with a lot of Asians, and I do a lot of business with a lot of Asians, and the mentality is so different. It's so different. I mean, they are absolutely killing it, and their access to funding, their trust, their integrity, the way they share knowledge, they share their resource, their money. In our demographics, there's been so much instances of some of your parents may have done this money thing where everyone puts money into a pool, and then every month one person gets it, and every single time someone runs away with the money. Every single time, at some point someone's gonna get greedy, and it doesn't work. But on the Asian side, that doesn't happen. There's so much more honor. There's so much more respect. There's so much more on the line. I don't know if it's importance. I don't know if we're greedy, short-sighted, but I believe that the genesis of that innovation is our minds. After we dealt with our minds, then we can now talk about the various different things that we can put in place. Not to say that's not important to still put in place, because there's still people that still will benefit from doing that now. But I think that there's a greater lesson to be learned at this point.
Sure.
In response to your question, I think one of the key factors, it's right to pick up on the education piece, because obviously a lot of people, and most probably a majority of you in here, have all come from that education background through whatever subject or theme or what's it enabled you to gain whatever degree you're gaining or whatever job you're doing. But everything has to fundamentally come from some form of training and education, and that element of access. So even though the elements of the different tenure mix that you can have in terms of housing, I think it's the understanding the value of actual ownership versus just have a roof over my head. It's a big difference. So when you understand that difference and the importance and what it can then sustain and continue on, then you will understand the real value. So that education piece of really understanding the difference, and maybe it does stem from workshops like this, maybe it does stem from actual real networks that are accessible, because you guys have got so much access and knowledge compared to when I was your age, with no social media there. So the amount of social media you have, and it's how you value that and you do that is different. And I agree with you in terms of the knowledge of parents, but what I think is one of the biggest issues that doesn't transform that, where parents don't, because I have two sons, old, and I supported my firstborn to actually get his own property, so he's in, and that was the first. He knew that he was so driven from I own property, so he was driven from that basis of he knew the steps. So that is important when you understand and know those steps, that's your part of your security that you're working towards delivering. And then when you then understanding the elements around credit. Credit's a huge factor that can destroy you, even from actually messing up your phone bill and not paying it on time. Your mobile phone bill, that's why they do that. It's connected to that. So there's lots of very institutional and systemic things that will keep you down, because that is an actual, if you looked at the amount of people that own property, that are white counterparts, for example, so only 67, so it's not 80 or 90, because we are a social housing society. So that alone, that's why you've got a huge element of homelessness, because the social housing society is also shrinking. So everything has its actual, literally, its concertina effect on one another, because of those things are changing within society. And as London alone, huge, will change drastically. So if you don't understand the process, and I do commend you actually for putting on an event like this and really challenging the question around it, because it's really, really important. And as young people, the more you connect, regardless of what happened, because I'll tell you something, you see the point you made about it's called partner.
Yes, that's what it's called. Yes, yes.
When our foreparents came though, from the beginning, from the Caribbean or Africa, what they actually did was gather money first. So they all lived in one house, then everybody saved, then they went and purchased there, and then they did. But what's happened is, if it is business or whatever, we would only have to know an elder to tell us what really happened, why is it not transferred down. But that element of really understanding the importance is so critical, and I think that I think it's coming back, and I think just in the set of this, this is what's important, because you put on this and you will continue to educate, and you guys, type of companies you're running, it can only get better. So you can debate what are the challenges and really understand the barriers, because I think that that's critical, because once you understand the barriers, you can make the solution. But unless you understand those barriers, you won't be able. You can debate all day long, but you really got to understand the barriers so you can actually apply the solution to those. So, and I think this is one that actually works. So I'm always optimistic. I have to be in my business. So that's the only way you can climb and understand the ladder. But really look at the corporate sector. Don't look at it to work for you, not just to be able to afford the next Balenciagos. But look at what you can do. Do you know what I mean? Look at what you can do. It's critical. It's not just about designer. I think a lot of our preferences is actually because we are putting enough designers in business. If that was what we were going to be measured by, we would do really well.
It's about delayed gratification at the end of the day, because we will give up the house for the Balenciagas, for the car, for these different things, and it's almost about, you have to hold back for a while, and it's hard in this show it society that we're living right now. Instagram, social media, the rest of it, we won't go into that. But it's hard to for some people to hold back, to go for that bigger thing, that thing that really means something, because it's almost like every single time you want to go for that big thing, you have to do something that doesn't innately come to a lot of people.
You have to come out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, it's not, yeah.
But understand what the value is. So you need to recognise that value for yourself at the same time, because that is really important. And unless you understand that, then you're always going to be at a starting point that you're actually not going to progress further from that point.
And I also think that, sorry to keep butting in,
No,
I don't know if anyone else will speak. I also think that in this society, we're so focused on the £10 million, the Jeff Bezos, the Mark Zuckerbergs. We don't realise the power of just having £5,000 passive income in property.
Correct.
How powerful that is and how accessible that is. I mean,
many strategies.
there's only how many Jeff Bezos. There's only how many. Not to say you can't go for that. You can go for that, but you shouldn't forsake other opportunities at a lower scale that can still give you that freedom, that lifestyle. I mean, you get £10,000 a month through passive income in property or businesses or whatever. You're living kind of comfortable. You're living where you want to live, and you don't have to worry about, you can take holiday for 6 months a year and everything's hunky-dory. But I just think that we're just focused on, I've got to be the next Angry Birds, I've got to be the next this, I've got to be the next that, and it's like you blind yourself to all the other opportunities that are around you. And property is so open if you tackle it right. There's not really many barriers to it apart from money. But if you're smart and you implement wisdom and you get the right, let's say, position yourself in the right property deals, that money is always there, because there's loads of investors, there's loads of people with loads of money that just want to just deploy it into things. I mean, just last week I completed a deal where I borrowed someone's money who I'd met 3 weeks prior, and it's just about positioning yourself, and that's why I use property as my main vehicle to this. And it's very important to share that knowledge so that people can see that it's not just, I have to get 30 grand, give it to the bank, get a mortgage, live that way. There's so many other ways. There's so many other ways. And I mean, people I know are getting paid ridiculous amounts of money in just referral fees. Finding a good deal, passing it on. That's somebody's whole business, a few emails, and they're making 6 figures from it. So it's amazing if you look at it right.
David, it's all well and good saying that young people can create passive income through property, and although I believe that is true, like what practical steps can someone who has no knowledge get, and how can they get into property through those practical initial steps?
Yeah, so for me, again, I like the fact you said practical, because I remember I kind of like, initially people were just kind of just, you know, sending me like sort of slides and stuff like that. That's not practical, you're not showing me anything. I'm not seeing where the value's coming from. So for me, what I did was literally shadow people and just like go to their business and just see how they actually do things. So I was shadowing a lot of property developers, literally just saying to them, I'll work for you for free because I want to learn about this kind of thing. So we're already doing stuff in Africa, but because it's in the UK, it's a different ball game here in terms of like the industry. So I really encourage people to actually sort of identify like leaders in the market, and also actually before that even look at some of the strategies as well around property as well, because there's so many strategies within property, and kind of align that with your goals. Find those kind of people that are actually doing that and actually like approach them. Just have the like, you know, the absolute audacity just to be like, look, like, you know, I look up to you, I see what you're doing, you know, is there any way I can sort of learn from you? If it means working for free, do what you have to do, kind of thing. You just have to have that attitude, and you know, if you have that sort of driven attitude to really do that, you will make it happen, kind of thing. So I reckon sort of like shadowing people that are sort of in line with your goals, or at least on the way, or on that trajectory, that really does help. So I don't believe in paying 20 grand for a course, for a property course. I know there's so many companies out there, and I'm not going to mention their names because I don't want to like, I'm just not that kind of person, but I know people that are like charging people like 20 grand for something you can search on Google, kind of thing, and it's just wild. Like I find that absolutely extortionate. Whereas you can just come to someone like me and I'll just tell you, like, I have not died, I don't mind. Like property it's such an Asian industry, it works. Like there's nothing to hide, there's nothing new about it. It's just bricks and mortar, and there's some obviously more innovative stuff, but it's not like a complete like game changing thing. But what it is stable, it's great for generational income. If you research all like the top families in terms of wealth, look at their portfolios, property. So that's what you have to do. Yeah.
Again, I'll probably approach it from a different angle. I think there's a lot that's been said already that's very, not only very true, but also very relevant. In the first instance, I feel like we need to distinguish between, when you're saying housing inequality, that's, what we're talking about here. We're talking about, I need to be a cleaner, I need to be waking up at 4 a.m. and then I need to go to my day job, I need to go to uni, and then I need to come back and do cleaning again, because that's the only way I keep a roof over my head, and that's the only way I pay rent. And therefore there is no way for me to say I'm going to own a property. Is that the kind of thing that we're talking about and talking about overcoming? Or is it that I'm quite comfortable, I'm just frivolous with my money, and I like Balenciaga and the rest of them, I don't know their names. And so the money comes in, but it goes out just as quickly, and I have never really sat to think of a bigger picture and a sustainable, longer term ambition that goes beyond myself and my material needs and wants. Is that what we're talking about here? Or there's that housing thing, and I think housing is one thing, and then home is another thing as well. What some of you touched on about what does a house mean to certain people, and I think it was you, David, and what does that look like? What do you do in that house? I think there's so much scope in there for housing innovation, and the thinking that we do, understanding the history of the things that we started off doing and we lost somewhere. Why did we lose it? There's probably a reason why, and understanding that fundamentally is a key to unlocking some of these issues that we face today. That thing of not passing on knowledge is like a real epidemic. Like I could be sick. I've known my mum all of my life, but there's things that I've learned today that I've never heard her say ever in life, and I'm thinking, if you would have told me this 10 years ago, I could have done something with this. But learning from the reasons why they maybe find property and investing in such things important. Aside from that, there's also loads of mistakes that they've made along the way. Borrowing money here, or doing this, or letting somebody do this, and whatever. So many different crazy decisions that have impacted on us. And meaning that although I'm from a household where house ownership isn't like unheard of. But at the same time, there's just so much unnecessary problems and unnecessary debt and unnecessary blacklisting and all sorts of other stuff that's come about that we could definitely learn from to ensure that we don't make those same mistakes. So that's one thing. But then I also see the thing of starting on a different footing from our white counterparts who've had sort of a head start over us for, you know, however long. It's not always, well, I would like to see it as an opportunity, because that therein lies an opportunity for innovation. The way we deliver housing or respond to housing needs to be quite innovative, and we can be at the forefront of leading what that innovation looks like. We can define it, we can execute it, and we can make that the thing that is what housing is, and what housing delivery is, what housing what housing delivery is, but also what housing need is, and how we address all of those different types of social disparities. We can be at the forefront of leading that, because the old ways of doing stuff, social housing is broken. I mean, I work for a council, I know that there's a lot that councils are doing in order to come back. Government is supporting those things. So there's a lot people are doing to come back at it. My role specifically is I'm supposed to be an innovative sites project manager. I'm supposed to curate and develop a program for small sites and infill sites in my local borough. So there's stuff going on, and there is no reason why we can't be at the fore of being those groups. I'm supposed to work with CLTs, community land trusts, which, as you said, black people basically started that. It's just full circle. We just need to take it by, you know, the horns and make sure that we're in there and we don't get sort of blindsided and shoved to the side again.
I feel like you guys should definitely have a conversation after about how you can help each other.
Thank you. Again, I'm coming from a totally different angle from social housing. So not only is the app based on people who live in social housing, but also I grew up in council housing, and after that went to social housing, and then from there I've been lucky because my career's been able to afford me a place that I'm no longer in social housing basically. But growing up, my mum, she didn't have that knowledge. Like, she wasn't in the same position as a lot of your parents. She came from privilege in Uganda, and then she came here 27, pregnant, and then they told her, oh, you got a free house. She was like, okay, cool. She never looked at her tenancy agreement, like, never knew what her rights and responsibilities were, and she literally just signed up. And like the amount of times over the years where she went to court for things like council tax or not paying certain bills, and because she had those 3 jobs as well as kids, and just balancing all of that. So I think there are subsectors in our communities, like some of us may have some of that knowledge, we may have access to it, and like we don't find out till later on that we have access to it. But say for example, my mum, she cottoned on later on, and then by the time she cottoned on, it was the credit issue then, because it's like now the banks aren't giving her a mortgage because she doesn't have good credit. And growing up where I grew up on an estate, and a lot of my friends, they, how do I say this? Their employment wasn't always socially acceptable.
Very good. Very good.
So, coming from that, so now we're at an age, I don't know if everyone's like around my age range, but I'm 20 and 27, and that age where they want to buy properties and they want to be able to invest in stuff, and again, it's the credit issue, and it's like also their records. It's very difficult to be able to start off. So even in terms of that, they want to like go through their friends, like say for example friends like me who have good credit and good jobs, they want to like go through me to get a mortgage, and it's like just shady stuff, and I'm like, I'm not interested because I don't know where this money came from, so I just don't want to like ruin like my prospects or any, like I don't want anything to follow me. But then it's like, what do? Because it's like they have the means and they have like the ambition and like they now have the knowledge, but now they can't. And then people like my mum, once she had the knowledge, she didn't have the means, so then she couldn't. So I think there are different subsectors where it can be quite, well, it's not necessarily straightforward, but like the steps that you guys are talking about are the right steps to take. But I think for some of us, we're in positions where even getting to that stage, we're still working on it and we still need that kind of support or knowledge or some sort of guidance.
Just to continue on from your point about people getting to a point in their adult life where the damage has already been done. Obviously, it's about at that point just implementing as much wisdom as possible. Maybe when they get married, then they can do that with their spouse or something like that. But I think there's a fundamental lesson that needs to be taught to young people before they get to that point, to be taught about how to navigate financial education, what credit looks like, your phone bill, all the rest of it. Because I think that younger and younger, these boys, mainly boys, are being lost to other ways of living. Just recently, I know you mentioned that you're from Forest Gate. I'm from Leytonstone, and I went to school in Forest Gate. I went to St. Barnes, and recently, your Andrews, yeah, that's my sister's school. That's my sister right there. And literally, like just 2 weeks ago, a young boy called Baptista was killed in Stratford. Yeah, man. And it's funny enough, just 4 weeks before then, I was at the school giving a talk about property and architecture to some of the students there. And it's like, it's about as much of us, even in our generation, so I'm 29, us teaching the 14, the 12s, the 11s, because sometimes the parents are too far to relate to them. So it's like, mum and dad, the time was different when they were growing up. Like there's obviously still lessons there, but maybe we can deliver it in a better way to people at a younger age. So I think it's also about, like we said, about the education, the home. It's about teaching young people. It's about teaching them, people like us, professionals in our field, studying like the ways of living, of alternative ways of living. So I just think that's a fundamental lesson that needs to be taught at a young age, so that even if they do maybe steer a bit wayward, they will still have that lesson in the back of their mind. So maybe before it gets too bad, they can make a U-turn and come back to the right way. But if they've never had a lesson, then they're going free fall into it. So I think that we need to be teaching the young people at a younger age all these fundamental lessons. And I was going to say something else, but I can't remember now. Sorry? Oh no, I was going to. And yeah, I think that the real life lessons of ownership needs to be taught. Even when you're looking at careers, business ownership, the advantages, the shortfalls of business ownership needs to be taught as well, because then at that point, then there's no limit to how much you can earn. Because I mean, in London, the average property price is 466,000, which will mean that if I'm a single person wanting to buy one of these average price properties, I need to earn over 100 grand, which for a lot of people in London isn't heard of. And then maybe even with a partner, that's still like 50 grand each, which again, not everybody earns that sort of money. So it's also about saying, okay, there's a shortfall here, and accepting that there is a shortfall, and seeing how can we supplement our salaries, maybe with a side hustle or a job or something like that, something that we own on the side that could then give us that little buffer that we then need to reach that level to then get on that property ladder.
That there is a space for innovation. That deficit or that gap, that's where you innovate. That's where you think to your feet, who is like-minded, who has the same ambition as me? We might not need to call it our home and live under the same roof, but we can go and pay for that property together, or between 4 or 5 of us, get onto it, put down a deposit, own that property. It's none of our homes, but it's our wealth investment.
Yeah, they did make that 4-person mortgage thing now, didn't they?
Whatever. If do we need to buy that home, like you said, in Aberdeen, wherever, in the Highlands of Scotland, somewhere?
That's nice.
Do something that's innovative and outside of the box.
Just so that we don't lose time, I'm nervous that we can look at questions. So I don't want to take over your spiel, but just so that we don't lose the opportunity for everybody to ask questions so that we don't keep it to the panel. I thought it would be
Yeah, be good.
helpful.
Definitely, it'd be great to get questions from the audience. Does anyone have any burning questions? Yes.
Hello, hi, I'm Shakira. I'm a project manager. My question actually is, to an extent, I guess potentially also overcoming an excuse. So my background, I would say, is quite similar to, possibly quite similar to Lynette's, in the sense that my parents didn't have the knowledge. In fact, I could probably go as far as to say that I didn't really understand a lot of things myself probably until I was like 25, and I probably was born into debt. So it was kind of compounded. Now I'm also, ironically, the kind of person where I look at my family and my friends, my community, so to speak, and from as long as I remember, I've literally been that person trying to get us all together to do the things that you guys speak of. Now I don't have the capital, and a lot of the time I end up actually working and doing the things that I would like to do for my clients, who are sort of property developers. But for me to do it myself, it's like, how do I get from here to there where I don't have the capital, and the people around me are just constantly just not willing to kind of, I would even say, sort of take a calculated risk with me, so to speak. Like how do I then do that? How do I jump that? And ironically, I was speaking to Giorgia about the same thing. So one of my, again, I'm not one of them people that kind of fear sort of ideas being stolen, because everyone can sort of implement the same idea in sort of numerous ways. But I actually, my mum has been speaking about Adjei for sort of most of my life. I learned about the partner system as well. And I thought, hold on a second, why can't we use something where, for instance, if I even have something as little as sort of £50 and someone has £500 or whatever, why can't we put this all together? I'm a project manager and I understand how to, from the beginning of a project all the way down to sort of handing over the keys, even to sort of property management, do it ourselves instead of having to kind of pay another expert. But it's like, why isn't this being done already, and why is it so hard for me to be able to kind of put this together to do? Because that to me doesn't sound like such a
I think it's in not necessarily looking to the people that are immediately around you to end up changing their mindset to match yours. You need to go out and find the people whose mindset matches yours and do it with them. It might not be your family like you want it to be. It might be that when you've gone out and found those like-minded people,
then they'll come.
They'll come after.
They'll come after.
They'll see it properly, and they'll come after. But
I think it is being done. What you mentioned about people coming together, putting their money together, putting their money and doing the things, but it's obviously not done in a widespread, documented, presented way. Because I know people that are very wealthy, doing very well in various different conglomerates that are executing exactly the same thing that you just mentioned there. Like what Selasi said, it's about obviously going out and finding those right people. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. It's about going out and finding those, people that are trustworthy, have integrity, all the rest of it, who are bought into the project or whatever you're doing, and doing it. And then some people, they work from I'll believe it when I see it kind of place. And that's because we live in a society where there's so much get rich quick schemes, there's so much courses, you're just bombarded with all this I'll make you a millionaire stuff, give me 20 grand. Like it's sometimes you gotta trailblaze and do it for your community, the same way that I've done it for my family and my friends. So I grew up where the people I grew up with, I grew up in Leytonstone, and the people that I grew up with aren't doing anything like what I'm doing, even to this day. But because I took that step and I did that, now, David, do you want to teach me about that property thing, or how did you get the money for that flat you bought last week and stuff like that? So it's like, you've got to do it first sometimes.
Sorry to kind of interrupt you. Ironically, it was actually you that I saw at one point that I thought, oh my days, shit, excuse my French, she's actually doing exactly what, and I wanted to kind of be like, how do you, I think at the time you were
Jay's
busy,
video?
Like,
Sorry, what was it?
I was just sort of online, I remember, and I found your profile, and I literally was reading it, and I thought, oh my days is actually doing what it is that I kind of wanted to sort of do. So I sort of saw you as a kind of example, like, alright, cool, let me follow this guy, and sort of see what he's doing. But you were busy at that time anyway, but I'm going to harass you.
I'm sorry. I'll make time, definitely.
A few more questions. We can take them 3 at a time, and then and then to the panelists to answer.
Hi guys, my name is Adjei. Also an architect and developer as well. I only came because I thought I was going to see David Adjei. Well, it's something different.
Oh yeah, that happened. David Adjei is a very successful architect. He's a very, very good.
But the thing that I was going to try to understand is, I think there's been a lot of great ideas that have been spoken about, but one of the things that has sort of frustrated me, has kind of pushed me a bit away from the whole social mindset, is this thing about profit. I think this is just my perspective, and I may be wrong, and I do apologize. I think there's something within our upbringing that makes us want to maximize profit. Now, within development, profit is a constraint. When I say profit is a constraint, it means that you have to make profit as part of your development for it to be viable. So it might be good, a lot of people coming together, and there are a lot of rich Africans and Caribbeans that do come together and buy developments here in London, but they won't sell it to you. They'll sell it to those that they can afford, so that they can make their profit. So that's where I feel that there's that shortfall. I don't think it's lack of intention, I don't think it's lack of support or lack of the network. It's all about profit sharing. So I guess my question is, are there any alternatives where we can all reward ourselves through development rather than looking at how much profit we can make? Because we know the Chinese guy would pay more for the development that we've all put our work into to making beautiful. But how can we make sure that we can give it to someone else at a much lower price without feeling the burden of not making the profit?
I think in that dynamic, it's about collaborating with the right RPs, registered providers. So registered providers are people that manage social housing. You probably already know, and there are a number of registered providers that will pay a lot more than the council's preferred list of registered providers. And also, I think it's part of the negotiation, part of the negotiation of the land at the beginning of the development. Because sometimes when you're dealing with land, you're dealing with people. And what you can do when you're proposing a development or proposing to buy a land from a homeowner or landowner, you can present to them the whole idea of what you want to achieve for the community. So they may say yes to your development, even though the people that are going to build their £1 million apartments have offered 20% more for the land. They may give it to you just because you want to do something for the community. So I think it's about
creative strategies,
creating that strategy, being creative with our strategizing, and looking at, okay, maybe we can't make all the money in the back end, but maybe we can save a bit more money at the front end by working with the landowner. Maybe they get some equity in it for that purpose, and then you can then offer it at a lower price to people in the market, because that ruthless development of putting £1 million apartments or whatever, that's resulted in some properties remaining vacant and they're struggling to sell. So a lot of areas are becoming quite saturated right now, and things are starting to slow down a little bit in the market. So I think it's about being creative at the negotiation stage of your project.
A mentor of mine once told me that you make your money when you buy the land. So a lot of people put the numbers in the spreadsheet and they look at the sort of the net margin on, I don't know, GDP or whatever, but they forget that if you go with the wrong price, that's you done, because during the project as well, things go wrong. So you kind of, I find that profit is literally my contingency, like, as well as all the other contingency I've already put into the appraisal, whatever I'm doing. So I think in this, as you're saying, David, I think in this market, you can't do it just the typical way, which is I'll buy land from you and I'll put as many facts as I can, you know, within the planning regulation or whatever. It's about, first of all, you've got many parties to deal with. You've got the landowner first, especially in this market where all the landowners have these crazy expectations. They want £3 million for a garage. Like, that's not going to happen. Do you know what I mean? And then you've got to then equip yourself an upskill negotiation now. What creative strategies can I use to give him what he wants? But then also, they're now looking at other things. They're like, why should I send it to you now? And then this is what you're saying about bringing that sort of like, okay, well, I'm going to do this for the community, which actually has benefit as well. So I feel like as a developer now, it's not as see when Blackley Homes and all those kind of guys started, it was very sort of black and white, but now it's, you've got to have a lot of skills in terms of negotiation, creative strategies is very, very key to be successful in this industry. So I completely sort of relate to what you were saying there, David. So yeah, no, just sort of really just get down to understanding creative strategy. You'll be right.
Let's take 3 questions at a time and then our panelists to answer them.
I think all of you are like really amazing. Thank you for like being here, letting us know about all of it. I really like you, by the way, and everything, the whole project behind your organisation. I think is really cool. Just like a brief overview based on that. I'm a psychology and sociology student. Also, I'm from Leytonstone in East London.
Come on.
But like just a brief thing in it, because I'm a bit of a student there. Like just as a brief like backdrop, like sociologically speaking, like in our community, when you talk about often, most of the times to create wealth in our community, that's through the route of education, isn't it? So in our community, black women have been given the right to education, and therefore given her the title as the backbone of our community. Often that leaves the black woman as the breadwinner of our homes, isn't that right? Most of the time, because I know for my family, that's how it is, you know? But, so unfortunately for the black man, he's been conditioned and systemically suppressed to make sure that he stays down, and that often leads for crime and criminality to enter our communities through socially unacceptable ways of income, as you pointed out. But obviously I think the way forward is we're just going to have to break out of that mindset, and I think it's all about the mindset, you know, psychologically speaking, honestly, like, it's all about that mindset. You've got to have that growth mindset, is what I've learned in recent times. Anyway, my question was, what can be done? So what can be done to allow for financial education to be taught in schools, especially in economically deprived areas, which is often BAME communities? Because obviously most of the time they can only be changed when there's a force behind it.
Let's take 2 more questions and then we'll let our panelists answer at the same time.
Financial education.
Okay.
Hello everyone, my name's Vicky. What I want to say is more about views and my experiences, so that people can learn from each other. First of all, I agree with the point that the lady made, that we need, this is Black History Month, and I believe every month of the year should be Black History Month. But I just believe that a lot of us, like for instance, I was born in West London, and a lot of people that came from Africa and the Caribbean settled in London, cities like Liverpool and Bristol. But I've just noticed over the years, again without reading my age, is that a lot of black people are being, you use that word, is it dispersed?
Displaced.
Displaced, yeah. What?
Displaced.
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 Displaced, yeah. From the city of London, where black people arrived, and it's just happening all over the world, like in many cities like Brooklyn. I used to go there on summer holidays as a teenager, and it was full of black people. Harlem. If you go to Harlem, Brooklyn now, it's being displaced. So in order to keep our history, as property people, we need to learn, or to cover housing inequality, we need to know how we can save the history of the black parts of London, like Brixton and Peckham, which are being taken over. So that's my point of view. I've got 1 or 2. Just please give me 5 minutes. I won't drag on. I just need to get it out. Also, it's a mindset. Over the years, I've mixed with different black cultures, and I find I've got to learn to say no now, because I know that when I mingle and are friends with a certain group of black people, I don't get anywhere, and I don't move. But when I move with a different set of black people, I tend to move forward. So I think it's about mindset and the people you mix with, and if you see they're not thinking along the same lines, you need to move on. And this is what we need to educate our children as well. You know, don't be friendly with everybody, but it's when you mix with the right people, you think differently, and that's a fact. And also, we shouldn't let postcode lottery get into it. But although it can be true, but I remember I used to live in Brixton, and loads of people in my church used to live in like Finchley and West Hampstead in those days. But look at Brixton now. I remained living in Brixton, and now I saw the potential in Brixton. It's just that there wasn't any money for the black people there. But look at Brixton now, they've seen the potential. It's 15 minutes to Oxford Circus, brilliant properties around Brixton, but just needed a bit of redesign or redevelopment. And now they've taken on Brixton from the blacks. So again, it's mindset, history. And quickly, I used to work in housing in West London, and because of all the cuts and personal reasons, I left. And I thought, what am I going to do? Again, it's about mindset. I thought, okay, the way to wealth creation, I think, is property. And that journey started when people like yourselves on the panel started to introduce it into the mindsets of black people in the church. And one of the leaders in that was Matthew Shimaloa from King ICC. And if you see the black congregation there, they were opened up to it can happen through him educating them. So we need to educate the children. Like, instead of educating all the children to be the best musician, the best footballer, you can earn money other ways. So even people that have got children, you need to educate your children. It's not through football or music. There are other ways you can generate wealth. So it's not, so with the adults, maybe they've learned it through the church, but with the young children, you can educate them through that. So don't let anyone brainwash your children. Like, for instance, I'm an adult, over 40, and even at my age, the society is trying to brainwash me. For instance, I was trying to get into the property. I'm still a beginner. I'm trying to get into property, and I went to an estate agent. I told him, oh, I wanted to buy a house, just testing the water, and he didn't get back to me. Then when he eventually got back to me, he said, oh, I found you a 3-bedroom flat in Ruislip. And I thought, I didn't ask you for a flat. He was insulting my intelligence. He said, oh, well, you came to us about 3 months ago. We just wanted to offer you what we've got because the figure you're putting down, you can't afford property. It's like saying, well, I said, well, you just find for me, because I was taught you can negotiate for a lower price to buy the property. But he said, oh, because I put maybe 250 down, you can never get a property in this area. So he offered me a flat. So, so we need to be strong and say, no, this is what I want, and this is what I, respect me. There was another person in the property market, a mortgage broker. He wanted some critical life insurance. It's like, instead of trying to find me buy to let. So I'm just trying to share my own personal experience, and that we need to be strong.
That's key, because we spoke about passing on generational wisdom, and that's what you've just done there. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Hi guys, my name is Daniel, and I just want to add to my sister's point is from a different sort of angle. This might be more my experience, but one of my frustrations to add to that point is just like the panel's been saying, in terms of taking ownership of our community, we need to, in order for that community to reflect us, we need to, own property in our communities. And one of the things that has been frustrating me is, I know people that do have the means. So I know people within my generation now, sorry to hot these guys up, like some of my family members, even like cousins or whoever, or friends, who are doing really well. They earn a lot of money, and they don't have this sort of like social community mindset where, to collaborate and do things as a community. And so my question to the panel is, how do we harness this sort of, social community mindset to, for us to work as communities and start taking ownership of our communities? So I might be waffling, I might not be making any sense. I'll just give a quick example. So most of them will buy a property, but it won't be the communities that they grew up in. And this kind of goes back to her point, is that we need to take ownership in the communities that we came from. Like Peckham and Brixton and Hackney are different now, and so we need to be together. We need to be buying properties all around the same area. And too often, people would buy a property in some random place. They can afford to live in Peckham or Brixton, but they don't have that collaborative mindset. And this is what I'm finding really frustrating. How do we encourage this, like, look, let's all buy in the same place. Because when we buy in the same place, then that becomes a community, and this is how communities work. Like, look at the people that are coming into these communities. They're from a particular cultural group. You know, they wanna buy in these areas because they've got shops that reflect their culture. So yeah, I don't know what I can go on and on, but I just wanted to throw that out to you guys.
Okay.
That's great. Thank you so much.
I feel like I'm talking too much.
So you've got 3 questions, financial education.
I ran more down. So financial education in schools, I think we need to accept that schools don't want to teach us kids financial education. They want to teach us how to be employees, how to be good members, how to be good people and be employees. They don't really care about your financial excellence, your financial growth. So it's about you as an individual, everybody with various levels of success, going back to the schools and propositions, because I'm sure you speak to the careers advisor in any school, they're going to be open to people coming back. What people do, or tend to, well, I don't know many people that actually do go back to their old school and give talks. Could anyone raise their hand? Anybody that's done it in the room? Oh, okay, so more than I expected. But the point I'm making is that it's not done enough. It's not done enough in the school, so that those financial lessons aren't being taught. It's not part of the curriculum, so government don't care about it. Yeah.
You can't say that now.
Not necessarily about staying poor. Not necessarily staying poor, but it's just the curriculum is what it is. I mean, if you want to tackle that, then obviously you go into politics and you make school policy, and then. But if you don't want to do that, then you can still be impactful now. So that's what I'll say. It's about individuals going into schools. Regarding the displacement, gentrification, of places like Brixton, Peckham, Hackney, all these other places. The flat I bought last week is in Hackney actually. The key thing is, at the end of the day, an understanding that as ethnic minorities, we own culture. We dictate so much of culture in this entire country and across the world that we don't sometimes appreciate how much we give to the world. So we let's say, for example, we detect so much culture, and we make everything so cool, but we own very little of everything. So we make these places cool, make these places trendy, Shoreditch, all the rest of these places, but we don't own nothing. All these shops, barber shops, hair shops. The fact that these shops haven't bought their lease is crazy to me. To me, it's crazy. You've been there for 20 years, and every year the landlord is increasing the rent until it becomes unaffordable. So then you then move out, and then a coffee shop comes in there.
Yeah.
So it's about the business owners, because they have the means to do it. They're generating income every year, putting bids in to buy the shop, buy the lease of the shop every single year, offering. They might not sell it, but eventually. Their daughter's getting married, they need the extra 100 grand, yeah, we'll sell it to you. So then that's how you do it from the business perspective point of view. And then regarding people, the men not sort of being in the place, it's about teaching our men and our women that we're kings and queens. You teach that lesson that the kings and queens, they're not going to do anything that's beneath them. So the other ways of living don't happen, in my opinion. I could be wrong. And then about your point about the social ownership, people not wanting to work with their peoples and stuff like that. Some people, obviously, you said that they're successful. They feel like they've worked very hard for their money. They don't want to risk it. They don't want to risk someone running off with them because they've got various different fears they're maybe battling with. It's about you finding those people, like we mentioned before, and work with them and documenting and showing what you're doing. Because I know a lot of people are doing lots of things, but not many people are filming it, putting it on the internet for people to see that it's visible, that it's possible. Representation is very important, because the media is not going to come and talk about David that's built this property. They're not going to do that. But you have to do it. There's YouTube, there's Instagram, there's all these things. You do it, find a group, do it, and show the world. More people will come.
Thank you so much. Just a quick final one on the element of, I think you two need to have a conversation.
You've connected, yeah. And
you need to develop an actual foolproof business plan, not an overlong one, but a foolproof one where you know the project management, do the business plan, and set out the financial forecast of that, and prove that what your theory is of that what you're trying to do can work. Because someone will fund you if you prove it.
Okay.
and that is what you need to do. So as well as the whole social media campaign bit, that's once you've got the funding, but the actual proof that it can work, because everything needs to be viable. And under that viability financially is the only way that you'll actually get that element set out that it actually can work. And you also, all of you, if you really are serious about buying property and all of that, you need to, unless you've got 60, 100 grand or something, or an investor in your back pocket, look outside of London. Look outside of London, because London isn't the be all and end all, and that's where everyone gets it twisted. Because even if you had 100 grand, you actually could then buy 10 flats or 10 properties outside of London with the 100 grand if you divided it up properly. So it's actually looking outside of it. But just to echo, we've got a certain amount of time before we have to get out of here as well.
So just one last one.
Sorry, shameless plug, because there's a lot of talk about mindset and financial education. So Giorgia and I are actually working on a team of, it was 8 of us, 7 of us. And in January 2020, we're starting a fellowship for young people, so it's young black people who are either NEETs or at risk of becoming NEETs. So our first cohort is 16 to 18-year-olds. So it's not the younger ones, but those who are about to reach that stage where they might not go into education, employment or training. And these are the type of things that we're going to be teaching them. Stuff that, has anyone ever had that feeling like, oh, why didn't they teach me this in school? Yeah. So all that sort of stuff, like things like credit debt, like a lot of the things that we've spoken about today, and other life skills, entrepreneurship, employment. There's going to be reverse mentoring on the program, and then at the end of it, it wraps up with a competition where each team will pitch for funding for an initiative that they've come up with themselves after they've gone through the entire program. So if anyone wants to be a guest speaker, this is my shameless plug, if anyone wants to be a guest speaker or reverse mentor, because I see a lot of like really like knowledgeable and inspirational people in here, feel free to get in touch with Giorgia or myself.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there time we have time for one more round of questions?
Gentlemen there, those two.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Hi guys, my name is Hugo, and I really appreciate the panel and everyone that's coming out here, and I'm probably going to link with you guys as well, because I've found that the education piece is a very important piece. On this side, Giorgia knows that what I've started a mentorship scheme called Six Mentorship Scheme, where we're trying to go back to the schools, youth clubs, secondary schools, sixth forms, and we're working with City Hall, a couple of other youth clubs, to teach them about stuff that's not being taught in schools, topics around financial literacy, mental health awareness, self-love, mindset, all these kind of things. I think for me it was kind of frustrating, because as I was going through uni, like even, you know, how much you don't know. So like the motto we have is like turning our hindsight into foresight. And most of the things I've learned is because of, you know, I tried to move my bank account from HSBC to Santander when I was in my second year, tried to move my student account, and they were like, oh, it can happen, and they're like, oh no, your credit score is not on par, and then we sorted that out. But then like the concept of like, you know, they know we don't know, so that's why you have to use the guarantors for them. And the more I just learn and learn and learn, and the more it kind of like itches me about how much everyone around me doesn't know. And obviously, you know, me personally and people around me were trying to, you know, go into these schools and youth clubs and trying to educate these kids. But one thing I've also found and want to understand is how would you also say that we get to our parents' generations to like let them understand these things are important? Because I know a lot of them, and some of them are family members, not to like out them, but they've been in this country about 30 years. Some of them have been on like 40, 50K per year. But some of them don't even have any savings, some of them don't have any retirement fund, they don't have any investments, you know, and they're still in like rotating debt. There's no, and you know, I found that, you know, the mindset and some of these things have been passed onto us in terms of like, you know, this auntie, I know she like there's no like she's on meter, there's no light at home, but she's still coming out to this party to do Adjei and to do and it's one of those ones that sometimes makes me question the priorities, and obviously sometimes it's because people don't know what they don't know. Like right now, even people our age, I've been trying to educate my friends about like lifetime ISA, Help to Buy ISA, you know, credit scores, saving, budgeting, and then but you still get pushback about like, oh now, you know, I'll start saving when that time comes, or I'll drop a lump sum when it happens. And I'm like, life's never gonna let you just do that lump sum kind of thing. So my question is, how do you see us, obviously, with the younger generation, we can all in this room do our part to kind of help them to make sure that they don't make the same mistake or be in the position that we are. But I think it's a simultaneous thing of like, even our parents kind of like, you know, I know for a lot of our parents, the retirement plan is their kids, but they're not even setting up their kids to be that retirement plan. So what would you say is the way for us to kind of like hit the parents' generation, basically?
Well, thank you so much. So I'm just going to, we've got 10 minutes.
Hello.
10.
Hello, my name is Naeem. So, this is what it feels like to be the token Asian guy. No, I think it's great that you guys got this collaboration going on. My question is similar to the previous one. Is I get that everyone thinks that property is a great investment, but I just feel like with the generation now, no one's really investing in themselves. As in, if you think about how your money's spent, like food, going out, meeting friends, and like if you cut it down, like no one puts any money into themselves. Like just think about how your time's split, as in watching movies, going out. How often do you find people that actually go home and they spend, I don't know, like 10 minutes meditating, 20 minutes doing some additional work, reading? So my main question is how do you get people interested to invest time into themselves? Like how do you get, because ultimately you can ask for help, and we can to some degree blame our parents, but my parents really didn't give me that much, but it was kind of in the regard that you need to teach people to help themselves to a degree, because there'll always be a handout, and you can always ask for a handout, but if you can't fundamentally teach people to realize that they need to invest time and money and sacrifice into themselves, then the ideology doesn't pass through, and then therefore they end up spending money on material, and their time and money just gets wasted otherwise. How do you change that mindset of like, look, you can spend your time and money, but you're not really inherently going to increase your worth or value unless you go in, like unless you invest in yourself. So that's really my question.
Hi, my name is Michael. Thank you all to the panelists for coming out, and I think you shared some really interesting. I was flatmating you, and we kind of rubbed off each other in terms of ideas. I really appreciate how he encouraged his focus on property and all these things. In terms of my background, I've kind of come from a different perspective, where my parents, they came to this country 96 or 94, sorry, with like £400 in their pocket, and they actually did go to KICC under Matthew Shimolo, and a lot of the things that he taught at the time were really focused on how to build people up in terms of entrepreneurship and property. And so in terms of they've had jobs, stable jobs this time, and they've put that money into property, and I feel really blessed that they have actually kind of imparted that knowledge on me. But one thing that I've noticed amongst them and their friends is that they have all kind of come from backgrounds where they've worked their way up and stuff, but when they get to that top bit, they don't think about how they can pull people up. They don't think about how they can help their communities. And when you look at like society in general, like whatever, basically, when you look at deep set societal change, it tends to come from the top. It tends to come from people that are in those positions of power and privilege that can essentially bring people up. And so my question is, once we do get there, and once you guys who have developed successful careers in property, what steps do you take to keep grounded, essentially, and make sure that you are constantly focusing on bringing your community up, not just yourself?
Great question.
I'm going to be really quick on all of your points in terms of, you've made a valid point around your parents and that type of generation. I am your parents. I'm 52. I am your parents' generation. That's why I'm the old one in here. Amazing. In that sense. So, and in terms of working your way up, in terms of your journey, I worked my way all the way up. But the blessings that I had was working on very major projects. So I worked on the Olympics, I then worked on Tour de France, and then I became a consultant by myself because I gained all of that knowledge and then was networking quite a bit, and people were constantly asking me to work on this project, that project. So I worked with some of the biggest engineers and then came full circle after 5 years of working by myself to then get headhunted at a very decent salary. So a decent salary, very decent salary, beyond what I would make as a consultant. So I thought about it. So there is the option of doing that. But it's, you have to have delivered
the value.
Exactly. And people have to then see that what you do is valuable enough to pay for that. So the importance of that in terms of evidence base is where you take it. And I don't say it to brag about my salary or what I do, but I talk about it because it's possible. Because I was born in Forest Gate, raised in Peckham, and continuously, South London. So raised all that, but so I went to, I have a master's, yes, but I chose to do that, and I had my sons young, and I was a single parent, and I raised my sons on my own. So the fact is throughout all of that, for me, but I was very driven. So that's what I'm saying. That drive and understanding of that driven. Yeah. You understand? My parents didn't say that. My mum owned, but my dad didn't own property here. He owned property in Africa, but not here. But the differences of that. So really understanding that drive. What do you want, and how do you wish to get there? And then within that, you all are going to do it from the younger, because you have this set up. So you're all going to do it, and you've got the young brothers on the panel showing that, and the women. So to me, I'm extremely optimistic because we didn't have this.
Yeah.
I don't want to take too much time. In terms of the social value issue, I feel like I don't know that I can compare myself to some of you guys on here because
of course you can.
Our bank account is not the same as some of these people, and that's because I choose to do the social value stuff. And it's a battle in, do I want to do social value stuff and not really have any money in my pocket? And what's my quote privilege?
Would you say they're mutually exclusive though? Sorry to interrupt.
It just takes a long time. Like what you're saying, you need to demonstrate
I do
that
social value here.
You need to demonstrate
I
that
do
value.
social value here, and you can earn over that.
It will take you a while.
But it takes you, it does take, but you have to prove it. Because people only want evidence. Nobody ain't paying for social value if you can't give them evidence.
Exactly. So that's, it doesn't need to be mutually exclusive, but it will take you a while for it to get to that point. The only bit I remember about, well, not the only bit, but the funniest bit was the way you were talking about the aunties going to parties. And I think it comes back to the thing of that drive. Everyone's not driven in the same way. People's priorities are different. People's ultimate goals are different. And we can't force anyone to have a particular drive or a particular sense of ambition about them. Just don't follow those people. That's about it. If it's the auntie going to the party, see you later, auntie. If it's the people in your family, you're my family, you're my blood, it's fine, but find somebody else. I also wanted to touch on something you said. I think I'm going to say something maybe controversial. Gentrification isn't supposed to be a bad thing. I don't see how...
It's bad if you don't own.
Yeah, it's bad if you don't own, but gentrification is part of what creates value in a place. So if you wanted to all move to wherever and all buy a property in whatever place, you made a valid point about us holding culture, and we don't value it ourselves. Other people make money off of us and the culture that we bring to a place, and on whatever else, Shoreditch, everywhere else. We need to take that with us, but also understand that there's an element of gentrification that needs to come with that, and then master planning on a short term and a longer scale to know when to bring those things in.
It's about the planning.
So yeah, so
we gentrified all of those places you're talking about anyway?
So
we came in and did that.
Yeah.
When we came.
Yeah, when we came, we are the gentrification. The key thing is whether we benefit from it or not. That's the key difference. That's the key difference because I know people that bought their house in Hackney for 50 grand back in the 90s, and now the house is £500,000. Like it's.
I'm just saying that the mentality where so many of us want to do our own thing and not collaborate.
But because there's no overarching strategy. Because when Asians are a perfect example of this, they strategize on this thing. They target areas and they go for those areas. We buy one house, the next house is available. We'll buy that. We'll buy that. But somebody needs to do it. Someone needs to start it and show people that it works.
Just because of time, unfortunately, we don't have this room all day, so take a point from each of the remaining panelists.
Okay.
Can I just quickly answer the question? Just very simply. You mentioned how to keep grounded. Like, I set up this journey. It's not about me. Like, the end goal is legacy. So, as in, I'm here alive to send things down generations. So it's not even about me. That's how I keep grounded. Simple.
Me personally, I just think that everyone in this room, you don't have to worry. You're already on the right path just by taking time to invest in yourself, as Naeem just said. And regarding your question about staying grounded, for me personally, I don't believe anything I've achieved is me. It's all Christ. That's my personal view. It's just I'm a conduit for His glory, and that's what it is. It's not me, my hard work, or anything like that. I never take the glory. People are like, oh yeah, you do about it. Yeah, to God be the glory, but it's not me. But so that's how I stay grounded. The minute I say it's me, then I'm finished. Yeah, that's long. It's long. But I just think that the fundamental thing is education. Just talking, sharing experiences, sharing best practices is the most important thing. Property is all people. You think that it's this investment vehicle, it's this money, it's this appraisal. It's not. It's about people. This game is about people. If you can, just a little tip for anybody that wants to get deep in property, come to MIPIM every single year. It's in Cairns. It's the biggest property thing. You have to be there every year if you want to see where all the big boys go to play and talk and create relationships. MIPIM, M-I-P-I-M.
Thank you. I can't remember who mentioned the elders, but I think in my experience, a lot of the times they have been investing, but they've been investing back home, so they'll pay to put a lot of kids through school, or they'll be building properties there or doing land there. So I don't think we should give them too much of a hard time, because a lot of the times it's not that they don't have the right priorities, it's because their priorities are elsewhere, because they don't see this as home, in my experiences. And then for the younger people, I think it's just representation. So not only us going to tell them about what we're doing or sharing learning with them, but making sure that they're in these spaces and that they're around us, so it's like it really like rubs off on them. And I think we've got to go. So thank you guys.